Okay, everyone, welcome. Tonight we're going to do something a little bit different. I plan on still focusing on the material design in XAML project, but I was offered an opportunity to go through and basically give a piece of software called NDepend a test drive. So my plan is to point this at the material design project and kind of put it through its paces and see what it can do. My plan is to kind of, as we go along, fill out any feedback I have. The develop manager that sent me the license asked for any information or feedback I had for it, so I figured I'd just jot that down in addition to this video, obviously, and then go from there. But first, before I get too carried away, there was a .NET conference this morning, and as soon as I get my buttons going, there we are. Boom. So there was specifically a .NET conference today focused entirely on desktop development. Oh, that is loud. Mute. There we go. So if you are interested in catching up on all of the cool stuff, it was basically focused all around desktop development. So it wasn't exclusively WPF type related stuff. There was WinForms thrown in there, WPF, WinRT, a little bit of Maui for people who want to do Xamarin Forms or mobile. But it was basically largely around what you can do with thick client stuff. And the really interesting part for me is that the line of what counts as a thick client is starting to get really blurry. You'll note in some of the stuff that they show off, there is a bunch of stuff related to what they're doing with Blazor and Electron apps, and again, kind of blurring that line between what I can do with web and what I can do with a like a full WPF or WinForms app. At the end of the day, it really boils down to what functionality do you need, and probably more importantly, what is your expertise? So if I've got a team full of web developers, I probably don't recommend throwing them in a WPF app unless there's some bit of that framework that you actually need to leverage, right? But if I've got a bunch of people who are already very familiar with XAML, well, that might be an opportunity to look at it, or maybe consider WinUI, which is not GA yet, but they're getting close. I think I saw preview 6 drop. Maybe I might be getting it confused with something else. There's WinUI previews out. They're cool. So check them out. WinUI is basically the next evolution for UWP applications. So with that, so if anybody is interested, and actually I'll drop the entire .NET channel. So if you are, I'm not even subscribed to this. Let's fix that button. So if you have not subscribed to the .NET channel, you should do so. Lots of great content there. And then more importantly, my YouTube channel, because you're here watching this. So, okay. So, all of that, I'm trying to think if I remember seeing, there was lots of great information in all of the talks. I'm trying to think of if there was anything new or revolutionary that was coming. There was a lot of great stuff showing off a lot of the capabilities that's in the latest Visual Studio Designer. So if you aren't running the latest Visual Studio, I definitely recommend updating it. You'll see me when I'm running it. I'm typically on preview builds, so it gets a little more, here, I'll move that so it's visible. Preview. So I'm usually downloading the latest and greatest Visual Studio Preview. Bear in mind, I have more than one computer, so even though I will use this for my day-to-day work, I do have a fallback machine that doesn't have previews on it. So in the event something catastrophic goes wrong, I can fall back to my other machine, but I haven't had to fall back to my other machine for months. So in general, the previews are really, really stable. At least stable enough for me to do my day job and not feel like there's any loss of productivity, and I get all the latest features. So for what it's worth, I really like them, and they're awesome. Okay, so switching gears a little bit. So NDepend. So let me pull this up here. So if people are interested, so this is the bit of software that I got access to here, right? So this is a so I'm going to try to describe this as best I can. So I've only been playing with it for about a week. So there is probably a lot of opportunities for me to have done something wrong and maybe that just indicates usability problems if I'm struggling with it. But there's multiple ways you can run this. You can run this as a Visual Studio plugin, which is, I think I messed around with a couple options, and I think the Visual Studio plugin is the way I like best. But there is also just a standalone XC if you want to go that route, which is great. That's kind of cool. And it'll go through and pick it up. Now, let me actually go through and fire this up. So I'm going to just declare tab bankruptcy real quick. Close all tabs. So this is the material design and XAML project. So if anybody's interested, there's the link. And if we go up, so I've already gone through the installation process. I don't feel like that's overly interesting to show people because it's really just a matter of click the installer, type in your license key, away you go. I thought I had a... Boy, maybe I didn't. I thought the link doesn't work. Oh, did I not? I may have messed that up. Thank you for that. I will grab the GitHub link here real quick. I thought I had set it up. I wonder if my DNS hasn't propagated out. I just did that one recently. There is the GitHub link to the project as well. So that one should work because I just took it off GitHub. Okay, so apparently I hadn't already set up a project with this. No problem. So let's go through and let's take a look at, so extensions, NDepend, new project, right? So we're going to go through and do this. It, for whatever reason, likes to default to my OneDrive documents. I think this is because it's my documents folder. What's up, Robert? We're going to try NDepend. You said you've done this before, right? You can tell me all the things that I mess up on. I don't know where I'm going. Thought I had a place where I was putting my projects. NDepend. Yeah, sure, we'll put it there. Let's see. Project name. Let's just do MDIX. Yeah, sure, ship it. I'm guessing I didn't save my project before. So the cool thing that it does, so when you, because if you use the outside console app, you have to like point it at a project or a folder of DLLs and all that jazz, and that's, yeah. So we'll just add Visual Studio project, and I want, oh, it remembers every project I've pointed this at. That's a little creepy. That's exciting. Okay, so we'll point it at the main toolkit solution. It finds all my stuff. That's pretty cool. Finds all my reference stuff. Yeah, that sounds good. And you can go through and you can do a bunch of stuff here. So the one thing that I highly recommend doing, so if you're already running code coverage, so if you're on any decently new .NET one, or if you've just done test, analyze code coverage, right? This setting here, I wish it would pick it up by default because I always have to browse out to it. Let's see. Let's just go material design, test results, and somewhere in here, actually, I think I can just point it at the root directory of test results. Does it find it from there? No, that picked up the top one. I don't want you to pick up the top one. Just root directory. There? Huh? Will you do recursive? Oh, boo. Boo. Now I gotta go figure out which one of these ugly gooid things is the real one. Nope. Nope. One of them has it. Really? Okay, new plan. Oh, come on. Okay. Back up. Delete. There we go. That we'll just kill it. So real quick, before we do this, I'm gonna hit analyze code coverage from all tests. So this is something, I believe that button only exists in Visual Studio Enterprise. I could be wrong. I'm trying to remember exactly. Something in the back of my mind is telling me that the code coverage tool is only in the upper SKUs of Visual Studio. However, if you are on .NET Core and to some extent .NET Framework, what you can use instead, let me just grab, let's see. Oh, I can probably just do this. Coverlet. Nope, not in this repository. Let's just do here. if you this guy. So this one actually shows up in if you do .NET New on any newer project, you'll note that you get a link to coverlet. So this is only guaranteed to work in .NET Core. However, I have been using it successfully in .NET Framework for a while. And for the most part, they say, yeah, this just works. So stand by. It's going to run my UI test, so it's just going to flash a bunch of windows at us. I forgot that when you hit Analyze from all tests, it runs all tests. So there's that. But you can use Coverlet to go through and get code coverage the same way that you could inside of the Visual Studio tool. So if you don't have the latest Visual Studio, rest assured you're not out of luck. You just got to add a NuGet package. And you only add this NuGet package to your unit test project. And then from the command line, you can do .NET test -- collect cross-plat code coverage like it shows there at the bottom, and you're off to the races. And that'll start generating out the cool code coverage files that you can then feed into various things. So if people are interested, that might be a fun thing to show at some point. I recently have gone through a bunch of projects and set up code coverage on them. So I feel like I've run into every possible mistake you can make along the way. It's very exciting, highly frustrating, and very exciting. But there is nothing better than getting a really pretty looking graph rendered to you in HTML showing you where all your code coverage is and where it isn't. Because the isn't is the interesting case. Go, go, go. Everyone's happy. And we'll let this guy run. And then we will run NDepend. And I've run this previously already on this project, which is why I was surprised I didn't have an existing project to start from. So the one cool thing that NDepend does is it's sort of set up for the idea of to come into an existing code base rather than to always be something that you plug in from the beginning. So when you run it, it generates what's called a baseline. And its goal is to keep you from adding bad code. So obviously, with every coding guideline, there is going to be exceptions, right? So at times, it is necessary to violate a guideline because to follow it would be, say, more costly than fixing it, right? However, there's also the concept of usually when you have flaws, it's probably worth fixing them because at a minimum, it's probably going to add confusion or potential problems down the road, right? And sometimes you look at it and go, yeah, it's not a problem I actually care about. Or like in our case, yeah, that's in the demo project. I don't really care, right? That's not part of the NuGet package. We're not shipping that code. How impactful is it really? Right? So there is a judgment call to be made. But what it does is it keeps that baseline, and then every time you run it, it'll compare the run to your baseline, and it can give you that delta, and then let you focus in on just the changes, or I should say the problems that have been introduced since the baseline. And that I can really appreciate because it's always frustrating when you have a tool that's like, yeah, just plug us in from the beginning and it'll be great. It's like, yeah, you realize I started my project 9 months ago. It's kind of like I don't want to spend time going through and doing it and fixing everything. And this one really is set up from the beginning to say, let's, rather than going through and doing that, let's actually figure it out. So I'm guessing it hasn't finished running yet. Test Explorer, let's look. Yeah, it's still running some tests. And yeah, there's a couple failures. That's okay. At some point, I need to actually go and fix these failures. They annoy me, but they are culture-based. And they apparently only reproduce on my English culture because they pass on the pipeline, which is exciting. Usually things go the other way. Okay, all that work just so that we can have this lovely little dot coverage file. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to go and add that. So grab me my code coverage. Browse. Oh, come on. It put all of them back. One of you has code coverage. Come on. Where is the dot coverage file? Where? Why am I an idiot? It shows me the code coverage file. I know that you exist. Code coverage. Where are you? Let's just do this. I'm going to move this to the side for a moment. because I don't know what it's going to find, and we're going to just keep that hidden until I know what I'm looking at. So date modified at the top. Yeah. So it shows that it should be in, so code coverage. Browse. I'm looking for 3.3. Oh yeah, it's right there. Okay, so it found my code coverage. Great. Okay, so we get that going. You can go through and you can configure all kinds of stuff. So the other cool thing is this thing actually tries to put a number on your tech debt, right? And that's always a hard thing to argue. Like I find that that's usually a difficult thing to convince the project owner of, hey, no, we really need to fix this tech debt, because this actually not only does it calculate how much time it thinks it's going to take to fix, but it calculates the cost of not fixing it. But we want it now. Exactly. And that, I think, is, let's see, man days and money. I like that. And I want, in the US, we put our $sign at the beginning, because that's how we do it. Work hours per day, let's turn that down because nobody actually does the full thing. 20 week, yeah, sure, close enough. This isn't real, so we're going to go with it. So you can customize all that out. I'm going to just take the defaults because, yeah, sure, we're going to go with that. So let's save and then run analysis and build a report. And this is where the coolness happens. As I will say, I was a little skeptical because you see these types of programs all the time and it's like, oh yeah, great. One more thing that, just analyzes my code base. But this one is actually rather clever. There's been an app I've had on my wish list for a while to build, and this thing's actually pretty close to it. So it runs, it generates this. You saw that window flash. It does generate out an HTML version of the report as well. We're not going to use that. We're just going to go to the dashboard because, like I said, there's multiple ways you can interact with this, and I would prefer this one. And so you'll note, because I fed it my code coverage file, it shows me my code coverage, which is great, and not overly shocking, right? Like this project didn't have tests until fairly recently, so I'm not shocked. And the UI tests that we write don't generate coverage, so this number is a little bit misleading. So, but then gives you some stuff here. The other cool thing, this is the estimated amount of effort it would take to throw away your project and rewrite it from scratch. So, what is that, like 1.5? I guess like 1.25 man years or something like that. So that's a decent amount. Tech debt. We have 47 days worth of tech debt. We got a C rating. And then this is actually, I found this to be interesting. And again, some of these are a little bit arbitrary because you get to kind of control these thresholds, which is useful. And you kind of got to tweak this a little bit to match what you need as well, right? So this is how much to go from wherever the C threshold is to the B, which is great. Other metrics, how many lines of comments, useful stuff to keep track of when you're looking at what is the magnitude of my project. I found the more interesting stuff over here. So obviously down here, these graphs are pretty meaningless at the moment because we just have an initial baseline. I don't actually have a trend per se because this hasn't lasted. But I'm gonna leave this on my machine and run it on the project, and maybe we'll check back in like 6 months and see how things go and just see what the deltas are, because I think that might be useful. Because right now, basically, we've just created the baseline, and that's about it. So let's look at the quality gates, because this is the more interesting ones, right? Because, so this is one thing that I did note in my feedback already, is I run with a lot of my fonts set bigger, and this thing doesn't scale nicely. I've actually noticed this on a lot of Visual Studio extensions. It's like people don't assume that people use anything other than default font size. It's really annoying, really annoying. So this window, not friendly to big font sizes. So let me see if I can get my way here. So the quality gates, so the 3 that it failed me on. So percentage of code coverage. Okay, get it. Yeah, that's fine. Whatever. Critical rules violated. Now this I care about. Yeah, and it's got the little help here, blah, 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 blah. Let's make this bigger. Let's make this bigger. Ooh, and I need Zoom it running because Zoom it's cool. Okay, so this is the other thing that I thought was really cool. And this is the part that I've wanted to build something like what's up in this thing here, because I've dreamed of having a tool that can do most of my code reviews for me. I do a ton of code reviews throughout the day. In fact, I would argue that I spend probably at least half of my day doing code reviews. And the really frustrating part is no matter how much of the process I automate, there's still, like, I've got a couple little tools that I've built that'll do things like use regex to just hunt certain things in people's diffs that are just obvious red flags, right? Just because I'm bored of commenting on the same issues time and time again. You either end up writing analyzers to hunt them out or just hunt them with regex, because analyzers are great, but they're only good against code. And sometimes the flaws are outside of code, which doesn't really help that much. And sometimes they're specific to whatever project I'm on and whatever. But this, they give you link. They give you link over something that is, that's an object model that's actually pretty friendly, right? So I can, right? Let's see, what is it? R dot, and I can go through, and I've got IntelliSense on this. This is wonderful. This was probably the thing that made my day. I was like, I have full link on an object model that I can use to build out rules. Okay, so let's look at some of the rules that we actually violated, because this is just showing me the critical rules, which is not overly interesting. So avoid types that are too big, right? Okay, so one, it's gone through and shown me, and I'm gonna make this window. Actually, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna bring this thing front and center, because I think this thing needs to be big. There's a lot of cool stuff in here, and I just want this window big. So it goes through, it shows me, you know, which classes are big, so not overly exciting, right? And then, you know, the debt and the annual interest, i.e. the cost of not fixing it. But then more importantly, if I go, well, hang on, what does it define as too big, right? Like, I can just look, right? I can come up here and go, okay, what does it mean for a type to be too big? And I can come in here and go, okay, so it's going to iterate over my types, right? And it's going to warn if the count of items that it finds is greater than 0. But so from the types, and then there's the where clause, right? So this is similar to just your straight link commands that I'm sure most of us have written already, right? So number of lines of code greater than 200. So if we come in here, whoop, and it's actually somewhat intelligent about when it counts too, because it tries to identify the just my code portion, right? Because there's some lines that aren't necessarily your code, right? Like if I get 205 lines, but you know, 18 of them are comments, does that matter, right? So there's some smarts built into this syntactic model that's not always obvious. And then also, let's see, what else are they checking in here? So methods and constructors. What matters is the number of lines of code in just my code. Agreed, right? Yeah, and this is a key thing that where most other things fall short, right? Is a lot of times they look at the assembly, which is the compiled IL, and as this comment indicates, when you write a link statement, a few lines of link can get compiled into huge numbers of IL instructions, which is usually, so if you hear people make comments about link not being performant, that's usually what they're driving at, that and the allocations of the enumerators, enumerables and enumerators. However, link also usually lets you write accurate, less error-prone code. So until you have performance benchmarks showing you that it's the slow point, don't remove it. Okay. But then, more importantly, you can come in here and then just start tweaking this, right? Including the debt and the annual interest. Because you'll note each of these things that it generates, these things. So here, like, what happens if I do this? Can I just Oh, yeah. That is, where did it go? So IL instructions, Do you select new, just my code? I was hoping it would use it for, I was kind of hoping it would just, yeah. So you can build out your own columns. I'm curious why it didn't change this. I wonder if there's something else that's affecting those titles. But more importantly, you can sort these things. You can do everything that you'd normally do with a grid, which is just so cool. Okay, so let's take a look. So the material design assist, so I can double click and look at this. And this one, I don't know if there's not a lot in the way of cleaning this up, right? This is big because we're setting all of the MAW app brushes. There's a lot of them. There's not a lot we can do. Okay, so this one we're going to ignore. And you can suppress the issue either by putting something in source or moving or doing like a global suppression file. I'm kind of tempted to just leave all these things in rather than suppress them. I mean, suppressing them is great because then you don't have to look at them in your lists anymore and you'll see your thing count up. But I kind of want to keep an eye on things. We'll let it go. Pop-up box. This is another one where I'm not overly shocked that it's coming up as a big class. There is, to some degree, I don't mind big classes. And with WPF, some of these just have to be big. Because you'll note every single one of these is a control. And usually the more complicated control, the bigger it gets. So I'm going to say this is probably not a rule that I care about. Discard changes to the following items. Yes, discard that rule change. Okay. Avoid methods that are too big or complex. So what is the big complex method that you care about? So animate children. Interesting. Why is this one big? So first of all, I lost my tab. There, this tab. I wish I could tell Visual Studio to just stay over here and, oh, I undocked everything. I didn't mean to undock everything. I just meant to move the one thing. Okay, you go sit over there. Oh, I messed everything up when I moved it front and center, didn't I? You go in there. You go in there. Okay. And now, more importantly, go away. Whoop. Okay. So, animate children. So, it claims that this thing is too big. So, I guess the first thing I want to look at is what is the criteria that it's using. So, lines of code. This thing has 62 lines. Cyclomatic complexity of 18, which is high. It's not unreasonably high, but it's definitely high. Yeah, so what is the criteria they're using? So IL nesting depth greater than 2 and number of lines of code or in cyclomatic complexity. Okay, so it's looking at a combination of if you have a lot of nesting and a lot of length, then flag it. I can get behind that as a criteria. The question is there anything in here that could be reasonably cleaned up? There's definitely some stuff in here that's weird, right? Like this is one of those areas of this is a coded up storyboard. And it would be nice, man, it would be nice to kill this. It'd be nice to kill this entire method off and put it into XAML and do it as like a visual state change. Because where does this get called from? I'm guessing it's on like the is opened or similar, right? Let's see. Yeah, is pop-up opened, right? Animate children in or animate them out. So this is basically just one big one big thing. Yeah, it'd be nice. It'd be nice that if this thing would... Did we declare any visual states on this guy? Pop-up state is in open state, is in closed state. So it does have two visual states. I wonder what's so complex about this guy that we weren't able to... Because I vaguely remember looking at this before, and I'm wondering what was so complex. So it goes hunting... So it goes through the content presenter looking for something that's a button. Oh, to rotate the button? Is that the intent? Oh, interesting. So I understand why this one's here. I don't know if this is something we're actually going to address here. So let's move on. Avoid methods with too many parameters. Okay, so the question is, what is too many parameters? Number of parameters greater than or equal to 7. I can get on board with that. Large parameters are problematic. Hoi vey. Speak of large parameters. Okay, while we're in here, I'm just going to do this because this, at a minimum, needs formatting so it fits, but generate buttons. Boy, that is a lot of parameters. So what calls this? Generate buttons. Find all references. Oh, look at that. Okay, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to do a little cleanup around this. So we're going to clean this class up a little bit while we're in here because I can see it now. And once I see it, IntelliCode. Yes, go IntelliCode. You were so close. I wanted the indentation, but you got pretty close. Local function can be made static. Well, please do that for me too. Anything else you want to clean up while we're here? I guess we can expression body that guy. I tend to think, like on a lot of these WPF ones, if we're going to use expression bodied members, I definitely like bringing the lambda down. Oh, target type new. Yes. C#9. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. I'm going to leave those enums there. The only thing I don't like doing as an expression body member, I can't get on board with constructors. It feels wrong. I don't have a good reason for it. It just feels wrong. Like, I don't mind if I see other people doing it. I just can't bring myself to do it. Are you just saying unneeded? Simplify member access. Yeah, because we're already in the clock class. Clean that up too. Sure. That's a simple thing to do. Surprised it didn't flag anything else. Okay. Well, I don't think we're going to adjust that one because, one, it's private, so it doesn't bother me that much. I do wonder, let's take a look real quick, though. So there are a large number of these things. Button radius ratio. Because I'm somewhat looking to see what are the different values that get passed in here. Right? So there is... Because obviously the enums pass different values. Is checked items converter. What is... Oh, so this is a callback. Oh, interesting. Do these always match? Oh, that is... Wait a minute. Where is this used? It feels like... So sometimes when you see things that look like... Yeah, so this is written as a value converter. And it's only used in code. Or let me rephrase, only used in C# code. It's never getting applied as a value converter. Because that means I could drop this. And you'll note now that that interface is gone, I'm betting that this still compiles just fine, even without that interface on there. Ah, so this, what are you squawking about here? So generate buttons is unhappy. What are you unhappy about? Cannot convert to I value converter. So this guy here, oh, hush now. So this guy wants an is checked value converter. Oh, it does need to be a value converter because it's passed in to a binding here. Oh, interesting. Okay, so this is weird. Okay, so let's see if we can clean this up, because this feels like something that should be, this feels like some tech debt that is worth cleaning up now that I'm in and looking at it. So, okay, so question 1, right? How do you address a thing with a lot of parameters? So usually the question, or I should say the fix, is 1, see if you can delete it. That's how I fixed a number of bugs today. Is there was a method that was failing, determined that we weren't actually using any state that was set by the method or the return, so I just deleted the method. It's so much easier than fixing it. But with all of this, how are each of these things used, right? So canvas is used. So nothing fancy with sizing, measuring. We are demanding a height, because these are the buttons for the clock. And I'm feeling very confident editing this because we've got a bunch of UI tests around this very specific thing. So if this is broken, I got some tests that should hopefully flag it. So this guy here is basically used to get the center of the canvas, right? There's some error checking at the beginning. Then he gets the center. Oh, it's interesting. This guy here, show me your usages. Can I do containing member? Oh, interesting. So it's set in, oh, I hate seeing this. So I hate seeing the, so there's implicit coupling here, and I'm trying to remember the exact name of it. I'm blanking on the name. But the idea is when you have an API that assumes that your methods have to be invoked in a particular order, right? So this guy here is making the sweeping assumption that this point is going to actually be set to valid values, right? Now, the default of point is 0, 0, so maybe it's not that big of a deal if it fails because it just hasn't been set. But it is making the assumption that before this handler gets invoked, that the center of the canvas, that point has been set. And that may be a reasonable thing-ish, but it does reek of coding flaws. So let's see. And then range is almost assuredly important because that's how many of the buttons we get. Though this one, I wonder if we could change up. What does it do with the buttons? It adds them to the children. Because we could probably start to break this up a little bit. So is checked value converter. So this is literally for the checks value converter. Okay, style property selector. I imagine it's probably almost identical. So two things that are all around that are being used just in this one place. Where's this get binding method used? Is it just used there? Let's look. So it's used in generate buttons. I'm ignoring the second set of hits down here because the only difference is these is target framework and we don't have a lot of like pound ifs. So this is only used inside of that method. So step 1, we're going to move this guy inside because there's no reason not to. Right? So we're going to come in here, replace private with static. Let's see. We can't do static because it uses this. We'll set it up like that. I generally declare my local functions as static by default now, with the idea being that if it is possible to have it be static. I want it to be. We're just going to do a return there. There's not a lot of gain to be had, but to make it obvious what's going on, we're going to new line all these things out, right? Never should you reduce lines of code at the cost of clarity. Okay, so we still haven't dropped anything out of here. We still have this weird style selector for this clock item button. And format, how are you used? Just to set so there, and the other thing is I'm noticing we've got stuff like this, right? That is, if the mode is this, then do this, otherwise do this other thing. Man, I don't know. This might be a harder one to refactor. I'm going to punt and come back to it. Let's keep looking. Let's keep looking. What? I missed that error message. Why can I not open you? Cannot open declaration in source file. NA because of interface. Huh? Adding this. This feels weird. Why can I not navigate to an interface? Where's my feedback? To interface, types. So if I do this, and I can do a little screenshot and grab that, drop a little screenshot in there, hold those notes for now. Okay, we'll come back to that. That feels like a bug. But that is saying that the snack bar message, let's jump to that. I don't think I'm fairly familiar with this interface, and I can guarantee it's flagging these ones, and there's nothing. We're going to ignore those. It's a wild Kevin. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. A wild Kevin, and we are... Huh? Oh, pop-up EX. Oh. Let's bring this guy over and look at it. We are playing around with NDepend tonight to try and see what we can learn about material design and make it better. Snack bar message queue item. Constructor has too many parameters. Well, I can certainly agree with that. I can certainly agree with that. So the question, though, is, I imagine we use most of these. Or somebody uses most of these. Yeah, like this one. So is there anything in here that would make sense? So an obvious way to cut this down, right, is these three guys here are all tied to the specific action, right? And it doesn't make a lot, like, you may only have content. You may not care about an argument to pass to your handler, right? Like, it is possible to specify all these things. But it's also probably better to have a wrapper type around this. So I think this one we actually address. Message queue item. And I think what we do... Yeah, so let's clean this up. So the hard part now, naming it. And so if this were an app, I would probably not be using a class here. This would be the word record, right? So because we've got C#9 and C#9 records are awesome. If anybody wants to learn more about them, hold on, shameless self-plug. Shameless self-plug. This essential C#9 talk that me and Mark Michaelis did, that's the top one here. You can go and learn about all of the awesomeness that is in C#9. The problem being this library gets consumed by older frameworks. We still have support for .NET 4.6.2, something like that. Regardless, older .NETs. And though you can create records and use them, they are not nearly as easy to consume by older frameworks. So, and I try to keep the bar for entry on the API as absolutely as low as I can get it. I don't mind getting fancy within the library, but the public API I try to keep as simple as possible. So, public class, let's see. It feels like snack bar. I'm hesitant to just take this name and then tack the word like action onto it. Snack bar item. Well, I don't like the name, but we're going with it. We're going with it for the moment, right? And so what we would do is we do something like public object. Let's see, content, right? And we'll let this be mutable. In fact, we'll let everything be mutable. Let's see, the second one is going to be an action. You'll also note that we do have nullable reference types turned on in the library. Woot, woot, woot. So, totally love it. They are a pain to go through and add to an existing code base, and ever so worth it. So if you are actively making updates to a library and you have time to pay off some tech debt, I highly recommend that you consider it as an option. The easiest thing to do is turn it on at your project and then write a little PowerShell or something that does puts that at the top of all your files. And then as you get to each file, go through and turn nullability back on. You'll note it's now flagging all the question marks saying, oh, nullable's turned off. This isn't valid syntax. And then you go, time to do it. Because once you turn nullable reference types on, it's kind of like async and await. It just propagates everywhere. The difference is you can turn it off with that #nullable directive. So what you can do then to clean this guy up is you go here. You go here and you change this guy to be boom. And we'll let that guy be optional, right? And that unindent. This guy comes here, and I think what we do is we just go, we do this, right? And we go, so I'm intentionally doing it this way, and I'll explain in a moment. Kind of like that, kind of like that, kind of like that. And then this is content. And actually, this is a bad name because we've already got action in the class name. I think I would call it handler argument though. Just to be clear that this is the argument that will be passed back into your handler, right? So if you want something fed back into you, you can do it. It's kind of a little bit meaningless given this delegate because if you can pass it here, you can probably capture it in your delegate. But this makes, sometimes doing that gets a little yucky. And so letting it flow this way is perfectly fine. And then what we do is we go obsolete, use overload with to pass action item data. Yeah, and then the question, so this would be one way to handle it. I'm going to leave it for now. I don't know if I'm going to commit it. I got to think about it then. Okay, so let's double back because this is no longer needed. So one thing I did get, so one thing that confused me on the UI initially when I was playing with it is when you dive into this, you'll note you're inside one of the Visual Studio tabbed windows, but these windows have their own tabs. Very confused me at first. Was not expecting them to do that because now I've got tabs of tabs. However, it's not bad once you get the hang of it. Okay, so we come back, close that, come back here. A namespaces that are mutually dependent. This one's probably a lot more interesting, and this is not a quick and easy fix. So the idea here is that in general, you don't want circular dependencies in your code. Your world gets miserable very quick. And what this is calling out is that there are, why is it saying this one shouldn't use material design colors? Oh, because this is in the recommended namespace. And so with types, it's usually pretty obvious, right? It's usually very easy to look at two types and figure out, okay, this type depends, A depends on B, but then B depends on A. And usually those things tease themselves out pretty quick, and you get bit in like serialization and other areas where that circular reference. Namespaces are much more subtle, right? Because having mutually dependent namespaces doesn't cause a compile error, doesn't cause a runtime error. Your app probably works perfectly fine, and it won't necessarily cause a bug. But it's an architectural smell, because if you've got two namespaces that are dependent on each other, it gets very difficult to kind of deal with that dependency graph. So refactors can start to become a pain, and that's where you start to see things sprawl out, where it's like, oh, I expected to change this one little thing, and now it's big and scary. So that one, this one is probably just a naming problem with these material design color recommended, right? So if we look at one of these things, this is down here only to be simple. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to change that, because this namespace isn't necessarily meant for grouping as much as communicating intent. And so I'm a little less concerned of it. This guy is saying this generate buttons, hello, hello, is leveraging our converters namespace, right? And then the issue that it's flagging is the converters namespace, or I should say, this converter in the namespace is now referencing an enum back in the other namespace. And in general, one-way street down. So the question would be, oh, well, that's remove redundant assignment. We'll clean that up while we're in here. Oh, fine. I can't resist cleaning up code. I see it, and once I see it, I can't unsee it, and then I have to fix it and make it prettier. So one fix for this would be to move the enum into a different namespace. I think I'm going to ignore this for now. Partially because that guy is just internal, and I don't care to address it right now. Ultimately, with the way that value converter is being used, it almost could be because of the way this value converter is used, I almost question if this guy is in the wrong namespace, and if this guy should in fact be a nested class. I do wonder if he should be like a private class inside of Clock. But that's neither here nor there. So let's take a look. So these are all demo app things, and I really could care less about the demo. So and not to say that the demo code is poor, because I do try to make sure that it is a reasonable thing to look at. But the demo app code is designed to show the breadth of what's possible. You are absolutely free to take code from the demo app and use it in yours. The one thing I will caution you on is the demo app shows a breadth of what's possible, and you probably don't want every single pattern in your app, right? Like, for example, it shows MVVM and code behind patterns, because both should be easily possible, right, with the library. You probably want to pick one and use that in your app, not use both. So things like that, just be aware of. So I'm gonna ignore this. This one doesn't bother me near as much. Non-read-only static fields. Oh, this is interesting. Let's take a look at this. So cannot open declaration in source file. Source declaration of field is not yet parsed by NDepend. The parent type source. Oh, okay. So this guy here. So what exactly? Non-read-only static fields. Well, that's easy. This should be read-only. I generally agree with this rule. Okay, so that one's fixed. Boom, done. These ones, can you fix these? I believe so. Right? Make these read-only. You shouldn't be reassigning these instances ever. So I think we're gonna clean all of these up. And while I'm in here, I just can't resist. I can't resist cleaning stuff up. So there's the two dialog hosts, drawer host, similar thing, right? So both of you should be read-only. And then target type new, because yay C#9, we're gonna slowly convert the code base one by one. So the flip command, we can do the same thing. So make you read-only. And again, this isn't that big of a deal, but it is accurately calling out that if somebody wanted to reassign this command to a different instance, that could cause some unexpected behaviors. Do they give more explanation? The natural to hold states can be modified is instance fields. Such immutable static fields create confusion about the expected state at runtime and impairs the code testability. Yep, completely agree with that statement. That is absolutely correct. So not to say statics or these things are always bad. Some people would want to immediately convert these to properties. I know that for WPF that's a bit problematic. This is one of those cases where practicality of the framework gets to win. So hold on. Desktop changed count and screens. What? So this code here is actually directly lifted out of WinForms. Okay, so I don't think you can be made read-only. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna do anything about you. We're gonna leave you alone, and just pretend like I didn't look at that. Sorry, I can't resist the urge to change code. I must clean up code. I'm gonna have a massive code cleanup. I'm gonna have to do multiple PRs here. That's the only way this is gonna work, is I will just queue up a whole bunch of PRs. But we'll do that after the fact. Clean up unnecessary there. Lambda body the member there. Just a lot of cleanup. For a while, I know people have actually, yeah, so expression body on the file for me. Yep, those all look good. For a while, there were people that were just submitting code cleanup PRs on the library, and I happily encourage that. The only thing I ask is that if you do a code cleanup PR, please don't mix it with like a bug fix. Separate those should be two separate things, because it gets very difficult to read and parse. Let's see. Did I actually address the property issue? Hold on. What were you squawking about? Switch track on background property. Switch track background off property. Oh, do we have one of these things that's not? Where is it? Oh. Yeah, that's bad. See, once again, not horrible. It's just that somebody theoretically could be setting those to a different property, and that would be not a good thing. So we'll clean this one up too. And then, oh, I should have done the apply to document. And yep, do all those. That's great. And then read only. Nope, not what I wanted you to do. IntelliCode, apply all three. Oh, IntelliCode, you are amazing when you work. You are absolutely amazing. Love IntelliCode. Oh. And the key phrase there is when you work, because there are definitely times where it does not work as expected. Okay, so we cleaned up all of those in transition finished. Yep. Boom. Apply suggestion. And then while we're in here, we'll clean this up because we can. Sure. Clean you up too. There. That looks nicer. Again, I have a hard time doing expression body constructors. And then snack bar. Are you are only set in the constructor? Why, you should be read only as well. So you can do target type new, and if it compiles, there's no reason not to. Okay, so I believe we cleaned up all of them. Let's just confirm that. Oh, there was one more thing that came out of the .NET talks earlier. They showed off this cool upgrade assistant. So if you are on .NET Framework and you want to upgrade, this is like one of those great 95% solutions. Because there's infinite things that you could have done in your older project, it's not always obvious on how the upgrade should go, but most of it can be automated. And so what did Microsoft do? They automated away what they could. So it'll walk you through it, show you what it's doing, show you its changes. They demoed upgrading an app. Now, obviously, your mileage may vary depending on your project, but if you're looking to go from .NET Framework and you're like, well, why to go to Core? Well, or I shouldn't say Core, Net 5, right? The goal is to get up to Net 5. The hard transition is getting from Framework to Net Core 3.1 for WPF apps, and then from 3.1 to 5.0. I don't know as if I've run into a single instance where I had to do anything other than just toggle the framework. All of the massive breaking stuff comes with Framework to Core. So, oh, I should share that. So, if people are interested, there's that. Okay. So there, what is your problem? Oh, this is being assigned in a... okay. So you are problematic because that would need to be assigned in a static constructor, and that is an instance constructor. So we're just going to ignore that because that's the demo app. Cool. Let's see what else we got. Avoid having different types with the same name. Oh boy. I am highly, highly guilty of this. This feels like... So, I get it. But here's my problem. Wait, we have 2 data grid combo box columns? So some of these I don't think I'm going to address because it doesn't make sense to. Because if you rename one of these things, it's going to be breaking. So for example, main window. I could care less, right? I am a little shocked. Show me, can I see both the types? Oh, look at that. Yeah, so there's one in demo and one in Ma apps demo. So yeah, could care less. Button assist. Why do we have 2 button assists? So one in demo, one in the library. We could rename the demo one to change it. And this is actually probably not a bad idea because I have had bug reports come in where people are confused because of duplicate type names. This is probably not a bad idea. I'm more concerned with this one. Where is my second data grid column? Oh. I introduced this one. Interesting. because before this class was called Material Design Data Grid Combo Box Column, and it was a big, long, ugly name. I'll have to think about changing that. I don't know if I should. This one is a known one because of the way we're linking in files. I don't think it's something I care to address. But this is actually good to keep in mind because we've run into bugs before where I've pushed updates. And there's naming conflicts between, say, Ma apps or Control ZX. Because we all leverage the same stuff, and version mismatches abound. Okay, so that handles the critical violations. Where'd my dashboard go? I think I closed it, didn't I? Dashboard. Hey, look at that. It's got a nice fancy button to get me right there. Okay, so that's critical rules. Let's look at high priority rules. Methods should have a low crap score. Okay, that is awesome. I've seen this before. Let's see. R-A-P. Oh, I wonder if they have a link in the description. I should just open it first. They might have a link to this for what is the crap score. First defined here. Yep, this is probably the exact link I was looking for. This guy. So we drop this in here. So, yes, this one I've come across before. Effectively, so people have constantly tried to look for an objective way to measure the quality of code. It is really, really hard. And this is one attempt to try and measure the quality of the code, right? And in general, things like cyclomatic complexity boil into it. Line of code boils into it. Some people will do indentation. The question comes, how do you make it language specific or agnostic, and all that kind of stuff. This is pretty cool though. So what is the criteria? So, and this also uses this uses the code coverage data. So cyclomatic complexity, code coverage. Oh, this is pretty cool. Okay, this is really cool. I like this. Because I would probably agree that in all of these cases, yeah, and it breaks it down here. So there's your cyclomatic complexity, and this is your code coverage metrics, lines of code, debt, and then severity is just, I believe, tied to the rule. Yeah, because severity is just hard-coded to high in this case. So there's that. I really, so they've got crap built. Oh, no, they don't have it built in. They calculated it here, right? So there it is. Cyclomatic complexity squared times uncovered cubed plus cyclomatic complexity. Okay, that is... I do love how it shows the percent coverage as a bar graph. That's really slick. That is really slick. Okay, so how does this thing sort? Was it already sorted? I think it may have already been sorted. So the worst one is that animate children in. So I'm noted there's a common pattern here, right? If it doesn't matter what metric you use, in general, your same hot areas are going to always bubble up to the top for any algorithms that's worth its salt. There's obviously differences, and people try to optimize and say, well, this is better than this, and yada, yada, yada. But in general, the same code pops up. Like this one here, right? So this one, get pop-up placement, right? So it has a very high crap score. And so the threshold they've got set here is 30. We're at 240. So way over it. And I don't, so, and so the question would be, how would you lower this, right? One could be increased code coverage, would help fix it. Lower the lines of code or lower the cyclomatic complexity, right? Those are your three choices. And honestly, I think the hard part is, I guess we could write tests over it. That would probably be the easiest way to address this, is actually write some tests. That wouldn't be bad. These ones here are not going to be doable, simply because these are mouse event handlers. And the issue being that the way we would test these is with a UI test, and my UI tests aren't reporting coverage numbers. So that is a flaw in XAML test, is because it doesn't report coverage numbers, because it's a little difficult to do so. They're going to show up, and that's ultimately the way I would test these, is with a UI test, not with a unit test. So this is kind of misleading, and that is one thing that I've noticed about this, is it appears to only support the C# side of the code, not the XAML based side, which gets a little annoying at times. So this is interesting. I thought we actually had pretty good coverage on this. Clearly, the answer is no. So collapse that. So we don't have any direct tests over this. Oh, and it's probably because this is internal all the way around. That's probably why. So culture get date format. So yeah, so this is going to be one of those cases, and this might even be related to my test failures. Sorry, I'm just kind of spot checking these to see if any of these stand out of something that should get addressed. I don't know. Let's circle back to those. Let's see. So we've already done. I wonder if I come back here, can I run? Yeah, let's run a test, because we fixed all those static field ones. So I would expect these 18 issues on this one to go away, or at least a bunch of them to go away, right? So let's let it run and do its thing as soon as I figure out where the heck it is. Oh, there it opened, and view and dashboard, pretty please. And load it up. And hopefully calculates a bunch of stuff. Does a bunch of rules. Okay, so our debt has gone down. That is good. We have made the code less yucky. Our coverage went up. Oh, it's probably by making things expression-bodied members, maybe? I don't know why our coverage would have gone up, but it's a teeny percentage. This is what I mean by NDepend is really, it comes in nicely at setting a baseline and then adjusting as you go, right? To keep you from going backwards, right? It's the idea of, okay, we understand we've inherited some amount of debt, or we've agreed to take on some debt, but everything that adds should be a very explicit decision, right? That's pretty cool. Okay, I'm trying to think. What did we do here? Use obsolete type. So this is using our now obsolete member. We should use the overload, yada yada. Okay, great. I'm going to ignore that because theoretically we could address it. I do want to verify that our other one went away. That's not what I was hoping to see. I want to look at take me back here. I want to look at where is high issues, right? Code should be tested. Agreed. I thought that static field one was in here. Struct should be immutable. How many violations of that do we have? Oh, just in those. Color pair isn't immutable? That feels like something I want to address. That might the problem is that's one of the that's a breaking level change, so I may save that for later. Okay, so what else can we do with this? So we've got issues, we can dig through it. That's great. I believe there was more funness we could have with this. Let's take a look, because I thought there was new issues, source diff, blah blah blah, dependency graph. This, hoy vey, this is pretty cool. Oh wow. So not a shocker. A lot of things point to pack icon kind. This, so this is pretty cool. The fact that this appears to be vector. Okay, so filter. Exclude. I don't know what this is. Exclude generated code elements, because I assume that's what that is. So filter. Yeah, that's better. I don't. Actually, let's turn back on non-public, because I'd kind of like to see internal stuff too. Okay, so we've got a lot. So the key part here is these lines all point in one direction, right? I've got, demo apps, because we've got the Ma apps demo, the Ma apps support library, and this demo all pointed at the core library, which points at the colors library, which holds a bunch of the colors and themes and whatnot. And we've got the resource gen library that kind of just sits by itself. Okay. We've got a bunch of stuff sitting here. List box assist points to Ripple. Really? Let's see. So how do I see what that dependency is? Oh, that's cool. So I've got, so direct callee. How do okay, that's great. How do I get back? One class selected. Up arrow? Nope. That's just changing my menu options. I want to go back. X? Nope. How do I get back? Back button. Ah ha ha. There it is. Okay. But I want to understand this dependency. How do I get... Maybe I should read. The hover item represents rating bar. Wait. It went away. Nope. I am looking at the wrong thing. Okay. So let's look here. The hovered item represents the list box class. This directly uses 2 items and indirectly 1 item. How to obtain... colors callee graph. I want to see this. Oh, the only other thing I do not like is on... Oh, the videos are all set to autoplay. Do not like that. So if I do this, right? Let's see. Collapse. Why did you zoom me out? Callees. So I want to see this because I want to understand where this is. So I understand that. I do not understand why this thing. Okay, I want to see what this thing represents. Why does listbox assist represent ripple? Okay, I don't see it. We'll just dive back to the code because I can't find it. Oh, there it is right there. And that be why it does it. So it uses it for the mouse button. But what do you use the ripple for? Ah, to raise the event on it to trigger the rippling effect. Got it. Okay. That is helpful. I guess that's worth knowing about. Nothing I can really do. Is there not a... Yeah, let's just jump back to there. Okay, so let's look and see. This bidirectional bit here. I like how it does the two directions. And then, because it kind of gives you a really good starting point. And this one I'm not overly surprised at. Yeah, the transitioner namespace has been kind of fraught with peril a little bit. And so I'm not overly shocked to see some of the red arrows there. Colors namespace is usually pretty clean, or that's converters. So let's see here. Theme and theme extensions. That I'm pretty sure I already know what that is. That not interested in because that's the WinForm stuff. Same with this one. Those are expected to be tightly coupled, and more importantly, you know, the little plus symbol. This is a nested class, so I do not mind that coupling there. Dialog Host. So Dialog Host and Dialog Session are tightly coupled, or bidirectionally coupled. Oh, that's cool. The edge's width is proportional in coupling to the terms of methods and fields involved. So the thicker the arrow, the more coupling there is. It is interesting. I understand and I know why the dialog host interacts with the snack bar message queue. I wish there was a cleaner way to handle it. And actually, a pub submodel would probably address this dependency. This is actually really nice to be able to go through and see this and evaluate it. So once again, this one here doesn't bother me because this is a nested class. Once again, nested class doesn't bother me. Converters namespace we already kind of looked at. Transitions we did. What's going on over here? Material design colors and recommended. So this was that bidirectional namespace issue that we looked at before. That doesn't bother me. That's kind of cool. I like that. I like that. Let's look at the dependency matrix. Hoy vey. Let's see. In this menu, describe. It's better suited than a graph to demystify the structure of large, complex portion of code because it can scale to hundreds of elements. That's great. Use the right-click menus on rows, columns, and cells to navigate the code structure. Okay, so right-click menu is my friend. Let's pick on... Oh, interesting. So, right-click, open one of my 35. Oh, that's cool. So, if I expand you, that's kind of neat. What happens if I expand that? Oh, cool. So I can see how these things relate to each other. Oh, that's kind of clever. Direct number of members, namespace types. So this is just number of members then, it looks like. I wonder, is there a filter like what was on the other one? Save PNG picture of the matrix. That is awesome. Export matrix code elements to graph. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I don't know if I need to really dive too deep into that, but that code metrics. Oh, is there a that's brightly colored and mildly scary. That's a lot of red. Let's see. Rectangles on the tree map represent methods. The rectangular size can be proportional to the method's number of lines of code. So bigger the box, more lines of code. So pretty much the demo app up here, is there a way I can exclude projects? Group by, like, can I just say exclude from this? Code matrix, select issue. I just kind of want to say, or focus one of these. So let's see, collapse all, right? Because I really only care about this one. Well, that's cool. So it'll show me which ones they are, but I can't just filter down to it. Interesting. So don't know what I did on that last one. That's kind of cool. Percentage coverage, variable, size, lines of code, level, method. Let's just do types. That's pretty cool. That's actually rather convenient, right? Because oftentimes I see people looking at their code coverage numbers going, well, I don't know what to go write tests on. This is rather obvious. Find the biggest reddish block you can and go attack that first. The big red block is the bad one. Oh, that's cool. And you can filter out. So do this. Basically set your thresholds of where things should be. So green will be, so if we said that I had, for hypothetically, right? If somebody said you have a code quality metric of everything has to be above 80%, right? Whoop, that's everything that's above 80. That's pretty slick. That is pretty slick. Search types with more than one line. Oh, I gotcha. So here's where you could, man, I really want to make this window bigger. I want, this is really cool. Oh, edit query. Can I make you, there we go. And is not an interface. Can I filter this way? So let's see, and t dot assembly as assembly name equals let's see if I'm just trying to see if I can get a basic filter here. Design themes dot WPF, right? That's a string. I love that these things actually save. Did that filter refresh? Code query generated. Oh, it didn't save. What did I do wrong? Let's see. And t dot. I just want then. How about, oh, namespace like. Oh. Man, there is so much useful stuff built in because it, like, I keep going back to how I would do it with like system.reflection. And I would write all of this. Huh. So I can just literally write a regex string. Material, design, themes, escape the period, WPF, and I think I just do that, right? Unrecognized, line 2, column 82. This would be great if I could see the column numbers. Adding that list. Does it show what column I'm on? Let's see. Leave that in here. Doesn't show cursor. So something like that. I'm a little surprised. What is it squawking about here? So it doesn't know how to handle that escape sequence. It's not the end of the world if it does that. So if I hit save, right, and I go back to refresh, I don't feel like that changed what I wanted. I must not understand how this is working. View description. I do not understand how that query is working. Let's see here. Okay, so let's go back and look at what else NDepend's got in here. So trend charts and metrics. We'll look at this, but I doubt. Yeah, these aren't going to be as relevant given that I've only run this twice. I think this is going to be more relevant as we run it more and more times. Search by criteria. Ooh, hold on. Explore code coverage. What? Oh, yes. The code coverage metrics. Oh, break it down. So this isn't bad. The one thing that the Visual Studio one has that's kind of nice. So like, for example, if I just pick on one of these types, right? And I'm going to get something with half coverage, right? When I open it, it starts highlighting what's used in the test and what isn't. I kind of like that over this setup because it makes it a lot more obvious. Now, I do want to go turn that off at some point as soon as I figure out where the heck it went. But that's cool. Not overly relevant if you got the latest one. Search by criteria. What does this do? Oh, I can just write my own arbitrary query. This is cool. This is very cool. So normally I find it problematic when I see somebody roll their own link type thing. But this, from what I've seen, despite my lack of knowledge of it, is pretty cool. And being able to arbitrarily query the code based upon this, I'm going to call it a friendly object model over your code base, right? It's not system reflection. That is somewhat ugly. And it's not the Roslyn AST, right? It is a code structure over your repository that feels a lot more how a developer pictures their code, right? it works if you were to define, like if you were going to redesign system reflection to be able to query over stuff, it feels a lot more like this. That is cool. I am happy about this, and this is all just other stuff. What is tools? Oh, and there's advanced mode. When I did do the installer, it asked me if I wanted advanced or I don't remember how it phrased it. I'll call it simpleton mode. I turned on simpleton mode because I didn't know what I was doing and I wanted help. DevOps integration. Yeah, you'll note that it integrates with pretty much most, if not all, of your favorite CI systems. I didn't see GitHub Actions on the list. However, their documentation has a here's how you execute to us on arbitrary CL or arbitrary CI systems with like command line. So I imagine GitHub Actions would be simple enough to do like that. What is Power Tools and what do you do? Ooh, this is fun. Technical debt, query with, yeah, so this is their link stuff, this CQ link. Detect assembly, versioning, and deployment issues. Oh, this is cool. Let's do assemblies. Okay. Let's just go here and maybe pick. I don't know if it's gonna find anything. I don't know if there's much for it to find. But sure, let's do that. Analyze. Show eventual assembly. When 2 assemblies are resolved, this is not enough to try to detect versioning issues. Oh, interesting. I wonder what it's doing then to detect a versioning issue. I wonder if it's... No, I don't. That wouldn't make sense. Analyze all network frame. Analyze assemblies in folder. AppWords. What does AppWords do? Oh. Sure. Let's... I'm curious what this thing comes up with. When outside of Visual Studio 2019 process, cannot gather a list of most recently used solutions. We're working on fixing this. Okay, sure, great. I get it. Let's look. What do you find? This is kind of cool. I actually had a desire earlier today. I was hoping to find a Roslyn analyzer that would spell check identifiers in my code. There's plenty of things out there that will do spell checking extensions for Visual Studio. There's a bunch of them. There's some great ones, right? But what I was actually looking for is an analyzer because I wanted to flag things that were misspelled and just failed pipeline builds. Let's see. Outline, material, design, theme, box, field, backing, circle, property, PLU. Menu. So minute. But now I'm concerned where it found that. Because now I'm worried there's misspelling somewhere. Let's see. Those are all just plus. Okay, that makes me feel better. Menu. So let's do this. Oh, I guess minus is another one. Just show me where that's used. I don't know what it would have. Like I said, I'm more concerned with if there's typos in my code than anything else. Not concerned with pack icon. Those ones, if there's typos, I'm not fixing them because those are auto-generated. Okay, so I'm less concerned with that. That's cool. Sweet. So short version, the Power Toys are a CLI sort of thingy. Code review methods changed. Oh, this is cool. I don't have multiple things to do. But if I had it checked out twice, it would do the diff for me. Oh, that is cool. Again, my dream with this is to get effectively something that I can use to automate away my hey, automate away code reviews. Okay, is there anything else left in here? I think I've pretty much gone through analyst layer error list. What was the error that it found? Oh, the quality gate stuff. Right. Okay. This is actually pretty cool. Cool. So I think that's probably most of it. And I don't doubt that I've probably missed a lot of it. Like I said, my plan is to keep using this on this library over the course of several months, because it is largely because I want to get a better feel for this trend, and then B, see if it actually helps improve the quality of code in here, or if it's just added noise, because it's a little hard to always say. Yeah, because it's nice seeing some of these things change. Because obviously you change one thing, it breaks something else. Excuse me. More Mountain Dew. More Mountain Dew. Okay, so final / initial thoughts on NDepend. One, I think this is a totally awesome tool. I absolutely love the rules. The other thing I didn't show, I came across it earlier this week. You can go and write your own custom rules too. So if there's something specific you want to flag on, you can do it. And that's, I think, the thing that I'm most interested in playing on. My plan is to try and write some rules for some of the common things that I look for in code reviews and see how hard it is to do in here. The problem is I don't necessarily have any of those off the top of my head. I was going to wait until I just saw something in a code review and go, good enough for a practical test, and roll with that. Because you can build these things out and write more of these as you see fit, and then obviously put your own severity on them and all that kind of jazz. It is a bit of a spendier tool, I will say that. They've got where is it? Buy and renew, right? So come on. So depending on the number, I'm in the US, we'll do dollars, right? So depending on where you're at, they do charge per number of seats, and then more importantly, build machine seats too, right? So consider that in pricing it out, right? And then DevOps, TFS extension if you want to go that route as well, right? Because you could then get the power of this built in there. I know Robert had commented last week, and I'll make a similar comment. This is a great tool for identifying problems. Like a lot of things in software development, I don't believe there will ever be a perfect way to objectively quantify code. I think tools like this will do a great job of getting you close, but I don't think you'll ever be able to completely objectively evaluate code and have these things be correct, right? Like this is a best guess of, hey, we think it'll take about this long, right? It's important to remember these are estimates, not hard and fast rules. And I would strongly discourage anyone from using these metrics to try and like motivate developers to say, oh, well, you've added 5 days worth of debt. It really needs to be evaluated on a case by case basis, right? And occasionally it will be important to say, no, we're either A, taking this on as debt, or B, no, the objective analysis is wrong. In this case, this, because of framework patterns, whatever, right? This is the correct way to do this. The tool's wrong, right? Like I said, I don't think any tool like this will ever be perfect, but I think this is a pretty good step forward in my mind for what I see here. So, yeah, I'm trying to think of what else. I think for me, the biggest advantage is this dashboard, the rules, the issues, and the code review stuff. The going through and all and I say that this dashboard, there's a heck of a lot of features behind this, right? Like even just the where did the NDepend, there was the options for that's all of the options there. There was project properties. Where did I find those? Oh, NDepend project properties, right? So even just all of the stuff and settings for everything inside of here, there's a lot to this, a ton of it of stuff, and I would say, if anything, it errs on having too much customization, not too little, because you can tweak every little thing to your heart's content. I know for one of the projects I ran it on, the coding standards for the project for like naming conventions are different. Like the default settings here are sort of what you would expect with a regular .NET project. Their naming conventions were different, so I went through and tweaked the rule, and it went from like an E rating to like a B or something like that, because the vast majority of stuff it was flagging was, hey, this doesn't conform to conventions. It's like, well, yeah, but the default conventions here are wrong. But again, the really nice part is everything's customizable, and that CQ link is fairly intuitive. It works like link, and you get an object model that makes a lot of sense. So I think, yeah. Let me look at my notes, that because I found a bunch of things that are minor annoyances, but I don't know if there's much other than that that's really bothering me. Like I said, overall, it targets. I might need to check their website, at least for the projects I'm on. The stuff that interests me is it only goes against the C#. It doesn't appear to really do relevant stuff against the XAML. And I was gonna look. I think there was there was something in here where I was looking at it, potentially dead types, right? So this one here, and this is one of the ones where I was like, it bothers me, right? Like all of these converters, right? I can guarantee you these converters are in use. Like for example, this is Dart converter, right? So copy, paste. We do just a straight text search. I can tell you right up, this converter is being used by the XAML here. And it's one of those, I suspect the tool is just not smart enough to know, oh, this is a WPF, theming library. That's where that's coming from. It isn't, in fact, missing. So there is a bit of, it's like, well, it would be nice if it picked it up. I understand why it doesn't, right? Like, WPF libraries are not overly common compared to everything else, and so do take some of that with a grain of salt, especially if you have something that, where did I get, was that under the high list? If you've got something that might be consumed outside of your library, just bear that in mind. So there is a little bit of that. I don't know the dead methods. I might have to go looking through, because some of these might be legitimately dead. Yeah, like this one. If this isn't being hit anywhere, this might be worth just killing this off. So I may go through and see about clearing out some of this dead code stuff, and see where that gets me, because some of these, or like this one here, yeah, it's not realizing that this is actually being consumed. Well, why didn't it flag the other ones? Is this one actually dead? Now I'm questioning how sure I am of it. Let's double check. Let's double check. Is this in fact? So A, it should be in sample 2, because if it's not, that's a different problem. Yeah, so it is there. It's interesting that it didn't flag, say, this one, and it missed that it was in fact used here. I'm guessing maybe it's parsing the XAML and doing its best and just failing. Yeah, not sure why it would flag this one but not this one. Best guess, this is an attached one. That one's not. So maybe that's the difference. Is it's not handling the one that's set with the attached property, but it does properly identify that one. Interesting. Possible bug. Yeah. So overall, I like it. I think it is well worth your time to go and consider it. If you think that this might be, and yeah, generates HTML report, not the one I wanted, this one. So if you think NDepend is something cool and you want to check it out, there is the link. Have at it. Again, I'm not making any commission off of this or anything. My only stake in it is they offered me a license to try it out, evaluate it, and give feedback on it. So that is what I'm going to do. So, but yeah, overall, very solid, very nice. And hopefully, I'm hoping to see some benefits as it starts filling in these ones here, and I'm able to compare against my baseline a little bit more. So I think with that, I'm probably going to sign off for tonight. Thank you everyone for coming. I know I've seen a whole bunch of chatter in the Gitter chat room, and I have been swamped. I've had a bunch of family stuff going on and have not had a chance to get to it. I do promise I am not trying to ignore people. It's just my life has gotten very busy, and I only have so many hours in a day, and sleep has to occupy some of them. So with that, I'm going to sign off, say happy coding. Thank you everyone for coming. Talk to you later.